Welcome to Coach How Could I with Mr. Aalok Gupta. With 30 years of leading and coaching in the corporate world, Aalok leverages his extensive HR and business experience in order to solve business problems with people's solutions. Coach, as a seasoned public speaker and a TEDx speaker, how may we incorporate public speaking techniques into our pitch to improve our storytelling?
Yeah, so Carlos, don't be shocked, and none of you should be shocked with my response. But I think people have overhyped storytelling. And so my short answer is don't use storytelling technique literally in your meetings and your pitches. And let me give you more elaboration on it. So I know the questions going in your mind, storytelling is such a big deal, and suddenly you're saying don't use storytelling. I would insist that you use visual technique instead. Now, here's what I mean. Right. So one of the psychological thing you need to know about human beings that we do not think in words, we think in pictures. So whatever point you're making, remember the story is a means to an end to your point. So let's take an example. If you're trying to make the customer, the client, see the value in your product, the value is your end, not the story. The story is a means to an end. And that's the worst thing which I've seen happening. Somebody goes and does a course on storytelling, start telling a story. The client is disillusioned, disengaged, and your deal has gone out of the window. So be very careful when you learn new techniques. So again, I'm going to repeat, don't use storytelling techniques literally. Now, this is how you should use it. Now, when I use the word visual, you got to make every point you make visual for you and the client. Now, there are a number of ways to make storytelling alive with easier methodologies. For example, using anecdotes, right? Using examples, using metaphors, using analogies, using cases, using case studies. Now, what I'm telling you are more relevant stories to tell a client so that it remains as a means and not the end. So let me exemplify for you. So if a client asks me a question that, Alok, uh, are you good in leadership training, right? Is that something which is very important for you? Now, the obvious stupid answer will be yes, I'm good at leadership training, but will he buy it? No. So what I would say that, John, leadership trainings is something which actually takes most of my time. I would love to do more sales training, but then clearly leadership gives me more revenue. Now, what I just did is I visualized revenue for you. I visualized time for you. Now you have bought in unconsciously. So I've kind of brainwashed you in unconsciously buying the point that leadership is something I'm good at, but I did not say I'm good at leadership. Because when you make a claim without a visual technique, the person does not buy in, right? So
Right.
what I'm trying to tell you in summary is don't use storytelling like they tell in the movies, a
Yeah.
protagonist and antagonist. No, use storytelling which is relevant to the business. And I just give you a number of techniques, a number of storytelling techniques like anecdotes, examples, case study to use it. And when you start using those tiny 1 2 minutes, you are actually letting the person visualize your point, in the absence of which it is just words which they cannot relate to. I hope that helps, Carlos.
It helps immensely, coach. In fact, we tend to share experiences of our own life just because we want to say stories.
Yes,
But sometimes they
absolutely.
don't bring any value to what we really are offering in
Yeah.
this
And
case.
and and the experience is a very good point, that reminds me of one interview I was having. Now, this lady who came for the interview, I asked her to kind of tell me a situation where it was very challenging, and she started with the situation, but she went into her experience so deep that there were tears. I could not stop her. But then ultimately, the interview went out of the window and her story became the whole situation. And obviously, she did not get the job. So remember, a story is a means to an end. It is not the end. The end is the point you're trying to drive, the message you're trying to drive into the customer's mind.
Wonderful. And if I may add also in to that follow up as a CEO coach, there is this stigma out there about sales. There is this stigma about understanding these key factors, key elements, key frameworks that we have spoken today. Sales has turned into something that no entrepreneur or most of the entrepreneurs are afraid of. And they miss the opportunity, they miss the chance to understand that every entrepreneur is also a salesperson.
Mm.
How could you reframe this question of how could we change this mindset of the entrepreneur to understand the beauty of sales?
Yeah. And again, so obviously, when you want to change a mindset a person is carrying, you need an opportunity to converse with him because what you're talking about is beliefs. Now, I can't change beliefs for everyone, but I can give you resources how to change the belief. But let me tell you first how important sales is. Now, if you think about an engineer who technically is not selling, right? But then what does that engineer does when he goes for an interview? What does that engineer do when he's kind of trying to educate a client on his architectural design? What is that engineer doing when he's presenting his coding algorithm to a senior management and asking for funding? All three cases, they are selling, selling, selling. It's just that they don't call it that. They call it cajoling, they call it influencing, they call it persuading, they call it moving. Doesn't matter what word you use, but essentially you're selling yourself, you're selling your plan, you're selling your map, you're selling your algorithm. So every human being, you like it or not, is selling. So obviously you need an opportunity to change that mindset. But the best book I have found on this concept, this case, this business case I'm making, is a book called To Sell is Human.
So,
To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink is a book which actually amplifies the point I just made. So the takeaway here is that there's no choice. No matter how much you hate selling, you're selling all the time. And the best training you can get is when you become a parent and you have to sell to your kids. Those are the best training ground because your kids will tell you you suck. Sorry for the word. They will tell you you are great
they do.
because they are kind of emotionally absolute transparent, right? So
Mm,
that's your best coaching ground. So we don't really have a choice. As we are born, we start selling. And the last example I want to give you, when a child wants a chocolate, they sell in different ways by crying, by making a tantrum. That's how they're selling and getting you to buy the chocolate for them. You see? So to sell is only human is going to be a resource. Potentially, it has changed the mindset of a lot of people, and potentially it can sell mindset for other people. But yes, uh, I also run a course on why selling is important for everyone. And if you don't like the word sales, don't use it. But you don't have a choice to run away from it.
correct. Correct.
And in my personal business, I don't use the word sales. We use the word client management. We use the word solution architects. And even if you think about the consulting firm, the partner, the director, Deloitte, EY, McKinsey, they all are selling 80% of their time. They just don't call it that.
Nice. Wonderful. Wonderful indeed. Sometimes we just need the right word to connect
Absolutely.
that makes represents the action that we need.
Yes.
Wonderful. And this has been Coach How Could I? Alec, if
Wait,
you would like have a last one last insight that you would like to share with our audience out there.
sure. Yeah, my one last insight will be mathematics. So I want you to kind of, choose a number. Choose a number, let's say 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 1 hour, whichever you give to your own personal development. And remember this, that when you kind of put that number into an investment towards your own development, whether it's 5 minutes or 60 minutes, multiply that with the number of days in a year. So 1 hour becomes 365 days. 3 years becomes 1,000 plus hours of expertise. Nobody can beat you then. So remember these lines from the famous Bruce Lee. Success is not an outcome of hard work, it's an outcome of consistent work. Thank you, Carlos, for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach. And for everyone, if you like this content, please subscribe, let us your comments. And if you have any questions for Mr. Aalok Gupta or for us in Inspire Growth, please just let us know. It has been a pleasure to share this information with you, to share this moment with Mr. Gupta, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you very much.